Alright, brake system safety standards, 448 subpart A, general module 1. Module objectives: identify proper train placement of equipment and operative brake space. Now give the scenario cannot be used the person advantage of the operated brake space. And give the scenario, explain the elements of the characterized location when the brake repairs can be performed. Subpart A, scope 232.1, applicability 232.3, definition 232.5, waivers 232.7, the responsibility compliance 232.9 with the penalty with 232.11, the preemptive effect 232.13, monitor movement of the defective equipment 232.15, special approval of the procedure with 232.17, availability of the records 232.19, information collection 232.21. Staggered implementation key dates: May 31st, 2001. Also, Part A with the exemption of the movement of the defective equipment provisions. So Part E, end of the train devices, August 1st, 2001. So Part D for the periodic maintenance testing requirements, April 1st, 2004. Subpart B, C, F, movement of the defective equipment provisions from Subpart A. Which railroads? The new braking system safety standard for the ferries applied to only freight car railroads, except for the subpart E with the end of the trail device for the apply for the passengers, while operating freight trains operating with the general system of transportation. Or any railroads exempt. Plant railroads, rapid transit operation not connected with the general system. Freight with a non-passenger train with the four-wheel coal cars. Freight non-passenger train with the 8-wheel logging cars with the height over the top of the rail with the coupler and length over the couplers not more than 25 inches. Locomotive with the hull only logging cars. Passenger train with see with the next slide. Tour scenic history excursion operation with the on or off the general system. See with the next slide. Exemptions continued. Intercity commerce with the short haul with the long distance of the passenger trains operating over the general system must comply with the Part 238 regulations. Tour scenic historic excursion operation with the on-off general system must comply with the form of the power brake regulation with the not reside under the Appendix B with the now reside under Appendix B. Part 232, no all passenger freight tour scenic history excursion trains operating over the general system must comply with the end of the train device requirements contained on Part E, Part 232. Additional exemption for the Interstate Commerce Commission Order 1352-8 with the scale of a locomotive crane with the steam shovel of the pile drive of the machine with a similar construction maintenance of the machines built prior to the September 21st, 1945. Export industrial other cars not owned by the railroad which are not used as a service except for the movement of shipments for their own wheel to give the destination such that the car shall be properly identified by a tower attached to each side of the car with a sign with the shipper stating that such of the movement is being made under the authority of the paragraph industrial other railroad owned cars which are not to be used in service except for the movement of limited signal switching of the district with a limited industrial facility, narrow gauge cars used extensively exclusively with switching operation not used in train movements with the meaning of the federal safety appliance laws. Definitions. Several definitions listed in the rule will discuss only with the definition may impact the understanding will be attempted to impart with you this week. Brake effective means a brake that is capable of reducing nominal design and retarded force on the train with a car brake car air brake is not considered effective. It is not capable of reducing nominal design retarding force of the piston travel that exceeds 10.5 inches of the car is equipped with a nominal 12-inch stroke brake cylinder or piston treble limited into the stencil sticker with a badge plate for the brake cylinder. Brake indicator means the device indicates the brake application range that indicates whether the brakes are applied or released. Brake inoperative means a primary brake that for any reason no longer applied with the releases are intended. Braking secondary means the components of the train brake simply develop the supplemental braking retarding force that is not needed to stop the train with a single spacing distance or to prevent thermal damage to the wheels. Primary means the components of the train brake system necessary to stop the train within a single spacing distance without thermal damage of the friction braking surfaces. Cold weather means the ambient temperature drops below 10 degrees Fahrenheit with minus 12.2 degrees Celsius. Contractor, person under the contract with the railroad or car owner. Off air means not continuing connected continuous source of compressed air at least 60 pounds per square inch. Order and date ordered, meaning the date at which the notice proceeded to given the procuring railroad to the contractor and supplier for the new equipment. Piston travel, the meaning of the amount of the linear movement of the air brake, however the rod with equivalent in the piston rod force outward by the movement of the piston and the brake cylinder and actuator limited by the brake shoes being forced against the wheel of the disc. Pre-revenue service, except for the testing plan with the make of the dominant for the specified 232.505 prepared by the railroad, explain with the details how the pre-revenue service the test for the certain equipment to demonstrate with the equipment means for the federal safety standard of the railroad own safety design requirements. previously tested equipment means the equipment to receive the Class 1 brake test pursuant to 232-205 and has not been off air for more than 4 hours. Primary responsibility means the task of the person performed with at least 50% of the time total with the circumstances of the conservative on the case-to-case basis for the circumstances for the individual does not spend 50% of the day with engaged in one readily identifiable type of the activity. Qualified maintenance inspector with the maintained qualified person have the receive of the part of the training qualification destination designation program required within 232-203 instruction training include with the hands-on experience with the under the appropriate supervision and apprenticeship with the one with more of the following function: troubleshooting, inspection, testing, maintenance of the repair, specifically training component of the system with the when the person is assigned responsible. With the person should also possess the current understanding of what is required for the properly remain with the maintained safety critical for the brake components for which it is assigned responsibility for the qualified mechanical inspector shall be a person with the primary responsibility included for the work with the generally consists of the function listed within the definition. Qualified person with the meaning for the who have received the training with the qualification designation program required under 232-203 with the instruction of the training necessary to perform one or more functions required within this part. Railroad is responsible for the determining of the person's knowledge, skill, and necessary to perform the required function for which the person is assigned responsibility. Determine the qualification competency of the employee with the designated to perform various functions with the manner set forth in the part with the determine the rapid function for which the individual deemed with the qualified based on the instruction training that the individual received pursuant 232-203 concerned with a particular function. Note all of the rules used with the qualified person for the describe of the person responsible to perform the various functions required. Under this part, a person may be deemed qualified to perform some of the functions, not qualified to perform other functions. For the example, although the person may be deemed with the qualified to perform the Class 2 intermediate brake test required by this part, the same person may or may not be deemed qualified to perform Class 1 initial brake test of the authorized for the movement of the defective equipment under this part. Rebuilt equipment means for the equipment undergone overall identified with the railroad as capital expense for the under surface transportation board accounting standards. Roll by a means for the inspection performed by the wheel while the equipment is moving in solid brackets of cards, meaning two more freight cars coupled together with the added to the remove of the train signal unit, train and unit train cycle. Movement means of the train except for the change of the locomotive power of the removal of the replacement of the defective equipment, meaning with a couple that consists of the constantly continuously operates the location A and location B and back to location A. Unattended equipment, that means with the equipment left standing with the unmanned with the chest with the man with the brake with the system, the equipment that cannot be readily with the control of the qualified person. The waivers sought with the relief of the complying with the Part 232 shall be submitted with the under Part 211 and always for the waiver of the pipeline does not mean with the petition with the relief of the compliance while the waiver is being investigated or considered by the safety board. Responsibility for the compliance of the railroad shall not use the hull or permit to be used of the hull of the line on its line, or for the interchange except for the interchange with the train with the railroad car locomotive with the one more with the conditions not in compliance with the Part 232 unless the movement is made with the corn for the 232-15. Uses versus hull, broader interpretation of the language of safety application act of the file with the FRA to take more aggressive approach with respect to the issue of the violation for the purpose of this part. Train and railroad car locomotive will be considered use of the prior department, but after the receive shall have the receive of the inspection required for the movement if it is deemed ready for service. Use in versus Hall continue with the relying with the broad interpretation violation. The report with established railroad must have the complete with all the necessary inspection remotely with the capable to discover the defect with the condition of the evidence must include with the established with the inspector base with the above finding with the specific as possible the name of the date and location, etc. Remember the added enforcement flexibility with the best violation of those deciding, actuating, moving the equipment. Personal versus railroad. The term the railroad is intended to be assignment and slightly interchangeable. The person meaning with a failure to comply with the requirement in Part 238.2 could subject for the railroad in person with the FRA enforcement action penalties. FRA can assess the violation of civil penalty of the railroad or any other person amount of less of at least $500 to $11,000 per violation. Violation against the individual will be willful in nature. Penalties up to $22,000 may be used stress for the grossly negligent violation pattern for the repeat of the violation created imminent head of the death or the injury of the person with the by the death or injury violation assessed for each day of the violation if the sufficient documentation. Criminal penalties may be solved against any other person knowingly and willfully falsify the record or report required by Part 232 preemptive effect for the prohibits for the state of the enacting with imposing relief for the railroad industry cover the same subject matter for the law of the state of the enforcement state criminal law with the key for the reckless conduct of the leads to actual loss of life, injury, to damage of the property, whether the scope of the provision applied with specifically with the railroad employee with the general nature for the public at large, movement over the defect of the equipment, the permit for the convention over the movement over the defect of the locomotive of the work cars with the one more over the air relay with the defect with except for the location class 1 brake test that are required to perform with the entire train. Most defective with equipment condition with a movement. The equipment is properly equipped with the beginning with the equipment become the defective while being used with the railroad aligned with the become the defective with the connecting with the railroad with the properly accepted the interchange with the repair with the corns for the item 7 in the next slide with the railroad nouns for the defective prior with the moving it for the repair move with the defective with equipment for the repair for the location where the equipment is discovered as defective by the railroad equipment cannot be repaired for the location where the railroad first discovered it is to be defective. The movement of the equipment is necessary to make the repair with the defective condition. Movement with the defective with equipment condition for the movement to continue with the location which of the equipment is being taken with the repair within the nearest available location for the necessary repair if it can be performed on line with the equipment with the first round with the defective is in the nearest available location the nearest repairs can be performed on line with the connection with the railroad if the connection railroad elect for the except with the defective with the car with the locomotive with stuff repairs and the nearest available location and the necessary with the repair with the performing on line connecting railroad is not farther than the nearest available location the nearest repairs can be performed on the line railroad where the car or locomotive was found defective. Movement with the defective with equipment conditions for the movement to continue with the movement with the defect with the car locomotive with the repairs not with the train will require receive with the class 1 brake test for the movement with the defect with the car with the locomotive with the repairs not with the train with which is less than 85% of the cars operative with effective with the brakes with the car and locomotive with the tag with the information recorded as required. Movement of the defective equipment determination for the movement of the qualified person shall determine the shape of the movement, the difficulty of the maximum safe of the speed with the other restriction necessary for the safely conduct of the movement. Asterisk means maybe qualified maintenance inspector as well. Movement of the defective equipment notification of the crew of the person chain with the train with the which of the defective equipment is moved shall with the notify of the writing inform all of the crew member of the presence of the defective equipment the maximum speed of the restriction and probe with the copy with the tag with the car to describe the following slide with it will meet the notification of the crew requirements. Movement of the defective equipment tagging at the location of the defective the first to discover the tag with the car with the place for the base both sides of the defective equipment except for the locomotive of the car with the tag with the be placed in the cab of the automatic report. Approved with the FRA is also acceptable. Movement of the defective equipment tagging information required with the tag with the car with the automated with the electronic tracking system shall with the name of the filing with the reporting mark with the car with the locomotive with the name of the inspector on the railroad with the name of the job title with the inspector with the inspection the location date with the age for each of the defect with the description of the movement of the restriction designation of the equipment that will be repaired with the signature or electronic identification of the person reporting with the defect with the condition. Movement of the defect with the equipment tagging with the retention removal of the document with the electronic written record with a copy of each of the car with the tag of the car with the removal of the car locomotive shall be retained within 90 days upon the request shall be made available with 15 calendar days of inspection with the FRA. Each tag car moved with the car with the locomotive shall contain with the date of the location reason for the removal of the signature of the person who removed the piece of the equipment. And movement of the defect with the equipment with the automatic tracking system the FRA with the automatic tracking system with the name of the element previously discussed shall be capable of being reviewed with the bond for by the FRA with any time with the ensure the integrity with the system the FRA associated with administrative safety prohibited or revoked with the railroad's authority with the automatic tracking system with the lieu of tagging with the FRA fine with the automatic tracking system is not properly secure with the accessible FRA with the railroad employee with the available to observe with the track with the monitoring of the movement of the defective equipment. Movement over the defective equipment, purging with the unloading of the hazmat with the defective car, load with the hazard material with the containment of the residual hazard material that cannot be placed within unloading and purging unless the unloading of the purging consistent with the determination made with the restriction imposed with the qualified person with the unloading of the purging of the necessary with the safety repair of the car. Movement over the defective equipment computation with the operated brakes for the calculation percentage of the operative brakes shall be determined divided by the number of the controls over the valve with the cut in with the total number of the control valve with the train with the control valve shall not be considered with the cut in and brake for the control of the valve with the inoperative of the both of the car locomotive shall be considered with the making the calculation. Movement over the defective equipment other brakes defective do not consider the following calculation percent of the operative brakes inoperative brake secondary brake system inoperable brake handbrake a parking brake with a PT within excess for the class 1 limited but not excess for the limits of the contained with the stencil badge plate overdue with the cut COT and S. Movement of the defective equipment train placed for the equipment with inoperative brakes for the near of the rear of the train with the more of the two adjoining and multiple articulated car with the more of the true control valve of the brakes for the control of the valve the inoperative of the movement of the defective equipment location for the necessary repair for the perform of the following location should be considered applying with the guidelines for same with the next slide with the location of the mobile repair truck with the U with the regular base for the location of the possible mobile repair truck with the originating with the personally permanently stationed. At a location with the railroad, perform with the mechanical repair with the brake system, repair with the location of the operative repair track with the repair shop. Movement of the defective equipment with the guideline with location should be the acceptable person responsible for the making the repair with the heads with the condition, effectively applicability with the safety make of the repair with the type of the need with the location of the nature of the repair, what will fix it, the take of the fix it, with the need of the repair, with the half and the plate with the effect with the need with the ensure with the safety timely repair of the equipment. Where the conditions creating hazard situation location if it does not seem need to be continuously staffed, nor does it have to be have the ability to affect with every type of the brake zone, the repair and performing with the SCT. Congestion of the work location is not an issue. Movement of the defective equipment, determination of the location of the nearest location where the necessary brake repairs can be made with the distance of the location. Key factors should not be considered with the determinant fact of the distance of the location considered in conjunction with the fact of the guidelines outlined with the two previous slides. With addition of the following safety factors that must be considered in order to optimize safety. Safety of the employee with the responsible for getting with the equipment with a particular location, potential safety habit involved with the moving of the equipment, the direction of the travel, the necessary for the going with the equipment with a particular location. Movement of the defective equipment, the destination, repair location for the railroad may submit with the plan establishing the name of the repair location for the brake system. Repairs can be made with a consistent with the guideline of the determination fact with the previously discussed. Changing alternate plan with respect to the designated repair location considered with the FRA in accordance with the special approval procedures contained in 232.17. Special approval procedure. The special approval procedure applied with the following designated repair location. Special approval plan with the SCT, alternative stand with the new brake system, the major upgrade with existing equipment with the special approval of the pre-revenue shift with acceptance with the testing plan. Special approval to proceed with the designated with the repair with the SCT, alternative with the information with the name of the title with the address, telephone number of the primary person for the contact with regard with the view of the position of the proposed plan pursuant with the 232.15G with the proposed or proposed with the alternative stand with the detail with the substitute with a particular requirement of the tribe with the appropriate data with the analysis poll for the FRA to consider. Determining whether the part with the consistent with the guidance for the containing of the 232.15 F of the requirements of this part with the alternative with the same with the will be provided with at least with the equivalent level of safety. A statement affirming with the rare with the serve with the copy of the position with the designated with the representative of the employee with the gap with the list of the name of the address of the person served. Special approval procedures. Approval procedure pre-revenue shift with acceptance and testing plan. Information required with the name of the title, with the address, with the telephone number of the primary person with the contact, with regard with the view of the position and identification of each of the waiver, if and if the RA, federal safety regulation required with the test of the revenue service the operation with the equipment, a clear statement of the test object for the ones of the principle of the test object for the demonstration with the equipment of the safety design performance requirement with the specified with the part with the operative with the environment in which they would be used. As planned. A plan scheduled for the conducting of the test, the description railroad property facility to be used for the conducting test. Special proof of the procedure for the pre-revenue shift with the acceptance of the testing plan with the test for the detailed description and how the test is to be conducted for this description show with the included identification of the equipment to be tested for the method of the equipment to be tested for the criteria to be used to evaluate the equipment to perform the means for the test result to be reported with the FRA with the description special instrumentation be used to determine the test for the description information data to be obtained with the description how the information data to be obtained with the analyzed use for the description and any of the criteria to be used with the safety limit during the testing. Special approval to receive the pre-revenue shift with the acceptance testing plan with the tab for the description of criteria to be used with the determine the successful failure with the tab for the acceptance of the rebase for the exploration left at the full level of the testing result of the analysis of it to be done with the justified with the L5 with the micro Potalitin should be described the description of any of the specific special safety precautions for the test for the written sale of the standard operating procedure to be used with the ensure the testing of the unsafe for the quality control but the procedure with the ensure the inspection testing and maintenance of the procedure follow the criteria to be used with the revenue ensure the operation of the equipment description of all of the test for the equipment that has been previously had been performed if any. Special approval of the procedure for the trip with the document opposition file within 232.17 shall be submitted with the triplicate with the FRA with the associated administrator with the safety edition with the filing with the group that shall also provide with a copy of the position file with the 232.17 with the designated with the representative of the employee with the railroad submitting with the plan pursuant with the 232.15G with the president the representative of the employee responsible for the equipment operator for the inspection testing with the maintenance and organization by with the issue with the stand with the incorporated with the section of the rule with the special approval that pertains or issue with the alternative stand with the proposed petition. Any other person who filed with the FRA with the current statement the inch of the review with the special approval of the particular requirement of this part at least 30 days, no more than 5 years prior to the filing of the petition. If the file with the statement, if the interest shall be filled with the FRA with the associated administrator of the safety shall reference the specific section of this part in which the person has interest. Availability of the records, all records associated with the part 232 shall be made available to the FRA upon request. End of Module 1.